Before we start, thank you for being here. Welcome to Impulse Engine. Here, we don't review movies, we investigate them. Systems, decisions, and the invisible moments when control quietly slips away. And today, we're turning the Final Destination universe into a human factors case file. Because beneath the horror, these films are detailed simulations of failure, small warnings ignored, systems stretched past design, and people caught between instinct and procedure. This isn't a story about death chasing people, it's about people trying to outthink their own design limits. Every story begins the same way: a normal environment, a normal day. Then, something feels wrong. A flicker of unease before every disaster. That feeling is intuition. In Flight 180's cabin, it's the smell of ozone, the tremor under the seat. On Route 23, it's the loose chain biting into a log truck's load binder. On Devil's Flight, a coaster rumbles off beat. At the racetrack, a camera trembles on its tripod. On McKinley Bridge, steel sings under tension. In the factory, a hoist cable strains just a little too long. Each world looks safe until routine blinds its inhabitants. Familiarity breeds silence. We trust procedures more than perception. When was the last time you felt something was off, but kept quiet because you didn't have proof? That moment, hesitation, is where every chain reaction in this franchise begins. The premonition scene that opens every film isn't supernatural, it's cinematic intuition. The brain catching pattern breaks faster than logic can. Alex on Flight 180 senses misalignment between what he sees and what his body feels. Kimberly on the highway spots an impossible sequence: tire, smoke, log, crash, before it all happens. Wendy on Devil's Flight photographs clues her conscious mind can't yet decode. Each experiences the same barrier: communication failure. Humans are terrible at expressing uncertainty. We want confidence before we speak. Systems demand evidence before they react. So the message dies in the gap between instinct and verification. That gap is the heartbeat of every Final Destination film and of every real world accident report. Pilots, technicians, nurses, soldiers all have said the same sentence before disaster: something doesn't feel right, and then the system moved on without them. Across all six films, the deaths follow a precise rhythm. A small error creates potential energy, another layer of defense fails quietly. Human reaction misreads the cue, and energy releases at the worst possible moment. It's the Swiss cheese model visualized in blood and glass. Every hole lines up perfectly. A coffee cup tips, liquid shorts a circuit, heat warps a gas line, a stray screw vibrates loose, friction builds, a machine overheats. You get the point. Nothing is random. Each accident is a mechanical confession of human behavior. Complacency, time pressure, normalization of deviation. It's always been fine. The filmmakers exaggerate the spectacle, but the chain of causes is authentic. If you replace the victims with employees and swap the score for silence, you'd have an OSHA investigation video. Every Final Destination environment is an engineering marvel waiting to fail. The bridge, the coaster, the racetrack all perform flawlessly until redundancy disappears. In real terms, that's what separates safe systems from fragile ones: forgiveness. When designs leave no room for error, human mistakes become fatal by default. The films showed us beautifully. When the bridge cable snaps, there's no secondary load path. When the race barrier breaks, fragments turn into projectiles. When the roller coaster sensor sticks, there's no manual override. It's not fate, it's design efficiency colliding with human variability. In the modern world, efficiency is worshipped, but the more streamlined a system becomes, the smaller its margin for recovery. That's why mortality feels like destiny. It's really just optimization without empathy. After each disaster, the survivors change. They become hyper-vigilant, scanning for new threats. They overanalyze patterns, predict doom from coincidence. It feels supernatural, but it's textbook trauma response. The mind that couldn't prevent the first event overcompensates for the next. Alex counts dates. Kimberly studies chain reactions. Wendy decodes photos. Sam, in Final Destination 5, connects fate to design flaws. And in Bloodlines, technology itself starts making the predictions: phones, sensors, algorithms that mirror human paranoia. We've mechanicalized anxiety. Do you trust your own senses or the systems that claim to sense for you? That's the question Bloodlines turns back on us. Automation promises awareness but breeds dependency. If the system fails, so do we. Every death begins minutes earlier. A hiss of gas, a hairline crack, a thermostat stuck open. Those montages of objects, the fan, the drip, the spark, aren't random suspense. They're maintenance reports in motion. In engineering terms, they visualize attention decay. Humans adapt so efficiently that repeated anomalies disappear from notice. A rattling vent becomes background noise. A warning light that's always on becomes decoration. When everything looks routine, risk hides best. That's why the camera in Final Destination lingers, to teach the audience what the characters forgot: situational awareness. Control is the illusion we build our safety on. We design systems to be predictable so our minds can rest. But when that illusion cracks, emotion spreads faster than logic. In the first crash, passengers argue with the one voice urging evacuation. On the highway, honks become orders. Chaos decides faster than reason. At the fairgrounds, bystanders film instead of move. That's human factors in group dynamics. When stress rises, authority shifts to whoever looks confident, not whoever's correct. If you were in that crowd, would you follow the loudest voice or your own instinct? The film's exaggerated, but the truth stings. We rehearse calm in training rooms. Panic rehearses itself in real time. Under stress, cognition collapses in layers. First, perception fades, details blur into routine, then focus narrows until we see only the threat, not the escape. Next, thinking overloads, too much data, no direction. And finally, emotion shuts the system down. Fatalism feels easier than control. Every Final Destination disaster follows that same descent: awareness stripped away, one layer at a time. Every catastrophe contains one shared silence, the moment someone notices a problem and says nothing. In aviation, we call it authority gradient. In healthcare, speak up failure. In Final Destination, it's the pause before the panic. Characters lock eyes, unsure whether to shout or to wait. And in that pause, physics does what physics always does. How many warnings in your own world die in that same silence? Communication isn't noise, it's a safety device, but it only works when courage overrides hierarchy. Halfway through each film, Survivor starts saying, "Death has a plan." That line is comfort disguised as logic. Fatalism is easier than accountability. When we say, "it was meant to happen," we stop learning. But the truth of these movies is the opposite. Everything that happens is engineered by neglect, distraction, or assumption. That's why the series feels cyclical. Humans forget faster than systems forgive, so the pattern resets. New environment, same behaviors. In Bloodlines, the algorithm replaces fate. Warnings are automated, choices pre-calculated, yet errors persist. Because technology can predict failure, not prevent inaction. The lesson stays constant. Awareness can't be outsourced. What these films dramatize, investigators see daily: in black boxes recovered from planes, in logs pulled from crashed vehicles, in maintenance sheets marked check complete beside unchecked items. Every real disaster begins like a Final Destination montage, tiny, mundane details linking invisibly. And every after action report reads the same: someone saw, someone knew, but no one stopped the chain. If you removed the gore and left the timeline, you'd have case studies titled "Loss of Situational Awareness," "Normalization of Deviation," "Failure to Communicate Imminent Risk." The difference between fiction and reality is paperwork. Aviation and healthcare researchers call this drift the error trajectory, the slow migration from safe practice to unsafe normal. It's the moment routine becomes ritual and ritual becomes risk. Each Final Destination chain is that trajectory filmed in slow motion. Why do we repeat? Because safety success erases memory of danger. The longer a system works, the harder it is to believe it ever could fail. Final Destination compresses that timeline. It turns decades of complacency into minutes of cinema, an endless loop reminding us that awareness expires if not renewed. Every generation inherits the same blind spots in different packaging. Metal fatigue becomes software glitch, human distraction becomes algorithm bias, same loop, new label, and every time we call it fate. In the end, Final Destination isn't about escaping death, it's about understanding design. It's a mirror held up to the system we build and the habits we trust too much. The horror isn't supernatural, it's ordinary. It's the bolt we didn't tighten, the warning we ignored, the voice we silence, but there's hope in that. Because if the chain of failure begins with awareness lost, it can end with awareness regained. We can't control fate, but we can control attention, and sometimes that's enough. Stay curious, stay alert, and remember, awareness is the only way to cheat fate.